Welcome. Hi, I'm Mikki, and this is Mikkipedia, where I sit down and chat to doctors, professors, athletes, practitioners, and experts in their fields related to health, nutrition, fitness, and well-being. And I'm delighted that you're here. Hey team, Mikki here. You're listening to Mikkipedia, and this week on the podcast I speak to the ultimate endurance legend, Simon Cochrane from Athletic Peak Coaching. Now, Simon recently smashed the world record at the UltraMan Australia race. This was on the back of a record 34 laps at the 24-hour Blue Lake Festival, 202 kilometres, which then kicked on to race and podium at Rotorua, 70.3 and the 70.3 in December in Taupo. He went on to place 5th at the Tarawera 100-mile race in February, then 6th at IMNZ New Zealand. Wow. So we discuss in brief parts of these races because of course they all form part of the picture that makes Simon the legend that he is. Not an overnight success though, because we discuss so much more than that. We discuss his history and experience in endurance sport, the nutrition tactics he uses, what he does for recovery, what a training week looks like, some of the elements that he thought made him most successful to be able to not only perform at these races but actually get to the start line at the start of the event, because that ultimately for us endurance athletes is one of the biggest challenges. And we discuss mindset, and Simon and I are totally on the same page when it comes to how you think about your training, your recovery and your racing, and what allows you to sort of push on when times get tough, because I don't doubt there were a lot of tough times throughout these events for Simon, and we definitely talk about some of that too. So I think you're really gonna love this episode, even if you've heard Simon sort of talk about his races and his successes on, Runners Only podcast with Dom or the Fitter Radio podcast with Bev. I think this conversation will expand on a lot of the other areas to do with Simon and his success. So Simon has been part of the fitness industry for 15 years, beginning as a strength and conditioning coach and building his passion for coaching and personal development. He has worked with a wide range of athletes and clients, from general weight loss and strength gains to coaching elite triathletes and runners to world-class level competition, which is no surprise given his talent but also his experience in the sport. So you can follow Simon over on Instagram at Cochrane Simon, that's COCHRANESIMON, or go over to his athleticpeak.co.nz website to investigate his coaching and training plan options if you're keen to get some advice from one of the legends in the sport. Just a reminder before we crack on into the interview that I would just like to remind you the best way to support our podcast is to hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast listening platform and tell your mates. That would be amazing. This increases the visibility of our podcast out there in amongst the literally thousands of podcasts, so more people get the opportunity to learn from guests that I have on the show, like Simon Cochrane, and what it takes to be an absolute legend. Because I'm really excited just to have like a conversation with you about this actually. So it's actually been like going off.
Yeah, it has. It's been quite a lot of exposure, I guess, since I've been back, which is cool. It's a different sort of sport, but I think all sports in the endurance world are just getting crazier and longer, and normalizing some short events now.
So, Simon, do you think that your exposure comes from the fact that you totally nailed that world record in that one event? Or do you think it was the fact that you'd also run 100 miles, done an Ironman? Was there something else I'm missing in there and then went on to do the UltraMan?
Yeah, the season was huge. I mean, it started way back, pretty much exactly a year before the UltraMan was my first 6-hour run, which is at that summer hill in the hills in Papamoa. Which, I ran 56 odd Ks, and then did the Blue Lake 24-hour. That's when it really...
That's right.
Yeah, 201 Ks.
That's right.
Yeah, that race blew my mind, let alone anyone who watched it. Like, I still don't understand how it went as smoothly as it did, really.
Yeah, can we just push pause on that one for a little bit.
Yeah.
Not push pause. What is it? Double click
Yeah.
on that, because that's right. That was such a remarkable run. And what did you go in expecting? Like, what did you have in your head? Like, what were you hoping to achieve in that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it had been going for, 5, 6, 7 years, and they'd had that elusive 200k trophy that no one had even got. There'd been quite a few that had done 100 miles, but another marathon on top of that within the time frame is quite extreme. But yeah, I put the numbers down and I was like, it's doable if you have good conditions, and yeah, I guess if you get your fueling right, your pacing right, and it's going to hurt and it's going to be a long run, but yeah, I thought I could do it.
and yeah, okay, so you went in and go, this is, if all your ducks, if all the stars are aligned, this is possible.
Yep. And yeah, it went pretty smooth. I mean, I had an hour and a half to spare in the end, so I guess that's quite smooth. But you got to commit quite early as well, because it is a long way and there will be a little bit of fading. And there wasn't really anyone else to run with or run against in the end. I think the next closest was, still not even at 170. So I was probably nearly 5 laps ahead at that stage.
Yeah. And were you just ticking people off in your mind as you go around them?
Nah, because there was 500 people across the day, doing all sorts of different distances, starting at different times. So I just, stuck to my schedule, but I had my paces running with me for 80% of that run, which helps a lot.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, absolutely. And Simon, what was your fueling strategy for that? Because obviously I'm super keen to do a deep dive into nutrition, because you've been a bit of an N=1 over your athletic sort of career, as from the brief sort of observation that I've seen from the outside with some of the things that you've done. But what was your strategy with this?
Yeah, well, my nutrition strategy over the years have been, at the extremes, I suppose, as well. Like, I've been carnivore for 6 months. I've tried, all sorts of different things. But for me, it's sort of going back to basics with day-to-day eating, and probably eating more, not being scared of the carbs, and realizing that, you're not actually going to be putting on weight or feeling worse or that sort of thing, and actually having more energy and probably recovering better. So day-to-day has been just eating more, and just eating good quality food. And then, the actual race day nutrition is pretty much 100% liquid now.
Is it?
Yeah, so pretty much tailwind nutrition, plus a bit of Coke and Red Bull near the sort of later stages. Just so easy to pre-mix. Like, you can plan everything so well in bottles. Obviously it digests a lot easier. You're not having to try and eat while you're running, or have too many toilet stops, stomach issues, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And what's your carb for the hour?
Well,
am I right in thinking it's 120? Like,
that,
was that what you were targeting?
For the UltraMan bike. So that's probably the most I've had, but didn't have any issues at all. And that was for 7.5 hours. So, that's like, I don't know what it was, nearly 1,000 grams of carbs over, which is crazy. But generally for running, it'll be a bit less. So probably in the realms of, 80 to 100.
Yeah, okay. And it makes sense, right? Because of the impact of running compared to being on the bike, where you're not getting that same sort of like GI sort of thing going.
And then, like, say for Tarawera, 100 mile, probably was around that 80 to 100 grams for the first, 10 hours. And then after that, you just don't really feel like ingesting that much. So you do have to sort of preload for the later stages, and then you just go to whatever you feel like. Like, it might just be more water, more Coke, but still keeping it simple.
Yeah, do you know what? It is interesting you say that. So one of my really good friends, Anna, she's like a professional. She was a professional mountain runner, and now she's a coach, and she's in the sport, and she's won Hard Rock and stuff a couple of times. And it's interesting because there aren't any great guidelines around how to fuel for events like this. Like, the traditional guidelines and she's explained this to me heaps. She said, like, they just do not work. Like, you almost cannot predict what your stomach is going to do or what you're going to feel like when that intensity kicks in because of the fatigue. Is that sort of what you've thought?
Yes and no. Like, I actually was chatting to someone the other day, and they said, so you've done, heaps of Ironman, blah, blah, blah. You've probably got your nutrition dialed in for that. You would have had to have a totally different plan for your 100-mile races than for UltraMan. And I was like, well, no, I stuck exactly to my liquid 80 to that 100 grams of carbs per hour, and it works. But I think I've done a lot of key sessions on my weekends of fueling with that right up to that limit, whereas a lot of people don't. They'll think they're having it, but they look back and it's probably like 40 or 50 grams, and throwing double that in on race day usually, turns to shit for most people, literally.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think what she was just meaning was that in the latter parts of the race, the way that you describe, you just have the Coke or the water or whatever you feel like. That's what she said as well. Like that she would go into a race with knowing that the first part of the race was going to be fine, and then just trusting that what she had planned there was going to help her in that latter part of the race when her stomach might not be playing the game. And that takes, I think, experience and confidence for an athlete. It's hard for a newbie to sort of go out thinking that that's going to go to plan.
Yeah, and if I look back to Tarawera, like in the last 2 hours, I probably got stuff all calories or carbs in at all because I was just feeling like water. But yeah, you've got the confidence to know that you've probably had enough during the run, and that you can go out and run 2 or 3 hours with no calories when you need to. You just got to keep pushing through.
And didn't you push through it didn't you run some pretty fast Ks at the end of that Tarawera?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. Like about 8K to go, I got a split to 5th place who was ahead of me, which was 3 minutes ahead. And I thought, oh, well, nothing to lose. The guy behind me was, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes back. So I thought, right, let's push hard. And managed to drop a 3:47 for the last K and catch him and beat him only by about 5 seconds. So to have a sprint finish at the end of 100 miles was unexpected.
That is phenomenal. So tell me then, so you did the Blue Lake, right? Did you have it in your head what your race schedule was going to be like this season at that point in time?
Not really. I sort of, I think I did Taupo 100K only a few weeks after the Blue Lake, and that went pretty well. So I was like, well, I'm handling some good training load and it's not affecting my racing. So I thought, right, let's do a few half Ironmans over summer, which was going to be Taupo 70.3, Rotorua Suffer, and Tarawera half. And very surprised at how my half marathon running off the bike was. Only a few weeks after the Taupo 100K, I had my quicker 70.3 run without doing any specific speed work or running off the bike or.
Yeah. Now, am I right in thinking it was 71 minutes or something?
Oh, 75.
75. Okay.
On that Taupo
yeah, but still,
yeah.
Holy moly, that's right, Simon. I forgot. I think I only forgot that because now I'm remembering it and remembering how how amazing it was. But I think it was because of what you've then gone on to achieve. It almost sort of got
it seems like it was
bit.
Such a long time ago as well because there's been a lot of racing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Simon, then let's chat about your training then, because obviously, because few people, so I think you're an anomaly. Few people can handle the loads that you can put out week to week. I might be wrong. I mean, you're the coach, but I just, as an athlete, as someone who knows athletes, it's significant. So what kind of hours are you putting in and how do you structure that week to week? And I know obviously it's going to change according to the thing that you're training for, but can we have a bit of a sample of what you did in your 100 in the lead up to Tarawera, and then maybe a sample of what you did in the sort of lead up to UltraMan?
Oh, I've got my training peaks open here as well. So
amazing.
But sort of going back to you saying handling the load, 2 years ago, I'd say I was a fairly moderate volume athlete. If I was running an 80K week, that was big for me. And I was still getting the niggles and that sort of thing. But I think it's just the 10 or 15 years of slowly, improving each year allows you to handle a bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess, it looks like I can handle massive loads and I'm resilient but I think it's just been a slow, steady increase in volume. So building up to Tarawera, I would have had, my biggest week would have been maybe 1 week of 150 Ks.
Okay.
But I was doing a bit different, I guess, in the way that I was doing big one-off key sessions, which I believe that not enough people do. Like a lot of people do their back-to-back runs and they think, oh yeah, I'm running, 40 on the Saturday, 40 on the Sunday. I'm running on fatigued legs, but you've had a whole night's sleep, you've had 2 meals, you've had, a shower. It's not the same as running 40 Ks and then another 40 Ks on the same day, non-stop. So I think that's where my back end strength in the run really pays off. But the build up for Tarawera was interesting because it had Tarawera half, only a couple of weeks before. So actually, the Sunday before Tarawera half, I ran a 90K training run.
That's right.
In Rotorua. And then, 6 days later, managed to get a 5th place at the half Ironman and run I think it was a 1:16 off the bike there. So that was, same thing, quite surprising. And then the lead into Tarawera, just a couple more key one-off sessions. So nothing crazy overall volume, like maybe around that 100 to 120 Ks a week running, but topped up with a lot of bike volume, which a lot of people who are just running don't do.
So how would that look in a week then? Let's say it's, so would you go and do a run on one day, like in the morning, and then a bike in the afternoon, or how do you do it so you get that load yet you still get that recovery?
Yeah, so I guess using the bike for a bit more of the intensity stuff because it's a lot less risky.
Yeah, nice.
Because you can push hard, your legs are still working hard, and your heart rate definitely is. And then some run off the bike, so you are running on tired legs, but without the total impact over that session. And then also doing some, say a 3-hour run on a Saturday, and then getting home and straight onto the bike for another 2 hours, and trying to keep the heart rate around the same as the run. So you're still getting that aerobic conditioning, but you're just not getting that total impact on the legs, which, people who are just running, they might do a little bit of cycling, but I'm talking I was doing an extra 12 hours a week of cycling, which adds a lot of aerobic conditioning in there.
Yeah, it does. Do you, who does anyone coach you, Simon, or are you self-coached?
Me now. Yeah.
So would you have a coach, or I
think I just, I was talking to someone the other day about this as well, and I was just saying that because I'm so busy with, I've got 2 businesses, young family, and obviously a lot of training myself. So most days I will make up my training on the day. I've got a brief sort of idea, but I'll head out, and if things crop up, I'm not stressed that I'm missing something because I can change tomorrow or I can do that. So I think it would be more stressful having a coach because you'd have your training peaks and you wouldn't be getting the sessions done, and I wouldn't get the value out of the coach because I would be changing it up so much.
Yes. Yeah, actually, you're so right. You'd actually be a nightmare to coach, probably.
Yeah.
In that respect.
And I think I know my body better than anyone.
Yeah.
And I don't think many coaches would have the confidence to program in some of the stuff that I'm doing. Not many people are doing a 90K training run a week before a half Ironman, and I don't think any coaches would recommend that. And I wouldn't recommend that for any of my athletes, but I'm trying to push the boundaries.
And you know yourself. And I think this is the thing, and this is why I think you are, so when I said you were an anomaly, what I mean is that I think that there is that it must be more than just 15 years of load running. And I just say this as a 45-year-old runner of 30 years, no amount of slow, steady build up over the years has resulted in me being able to do that,
Yep.
And because there are people like Killian Jornet, I think about people like him and Michael Knight, and is it Mike Knight? The zero carb. He's not really zero carb. He calls himself zero carb. I don't know. I've seen him eat carbs. I don't know what he's on about. And Mike Wardian would be another one. These super sort of high voluminous type people.
Yep. And the volume before the UltraMan build up was the biggest 6 weeks of my life.
Yes.
Just because the bike run and swim volume had to be high. So the intensity was lower.
Yeah.
But I peaked out at just looking back now.
Yeah.
A 36-hour week plus, some sauna and stretching and a little bit of that sort of thing that I don't add into training peaks.
So that's right, because you've got a sauna. You've got one of those dry saunas that you built.
Yes, sauna, ice bath, and pretty much a full gym set up in my garage. So yeah,
I'm not
good,
surprised you'd need it, to be
good for
fair.
time efficiency. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I have a question for you. I'm a little bit this you know what I'm like, Simon. I sort of like things get in my head and I just talk about them. How did you run all this by Larissa at the start?
Um, yeah, ask for forgiveness instead of permission. Yeah, well, when I bought the sauna,
Yeah.
like a kit set sauna that pretty much arrived just before COVID, so I had time to, muck around at
Yeah.
home and build it up. But it's an indoor sauna that I waterproofed and built a roof on and wanted it outdoors just to, it's a hell of a lot nicer than sitting in the corner of the garage like you see some people. So we're looking out to the backyard to trees and nice, nice sky and whatnot. And yeah, she thought it was a bit crazy, so I put a little concrete pad in and put it, off to the side. But now she loves it, she enjoys it and uses it as much as I do.
Yeah.
So.
No, so that's cool. But what I mean is, how did you run your crazy training and the hours spent out training? I mean, it's amazing actually. It's so great to see you got, because she's an athlete as well, and she's done some pretty awesome things over the last few months too. So it hasn't just been one in the Cochrane family who've been out sort of smashing it.
Yeah, no, she's definitely into it as well, and went and ran Queenstown Marathon, and it's got a few other things in the pipeline as well. Jumped into a couple of half Ironmans over summer, not with a huge build up, but still just enjoyed it, got it done. But yeah, I guess I've always done this, and I've always made it work. And because of my work being flexible, like I'm at home when it counts. Like I'm at home. I go to swim squad super early in the morning, but I'm home by pretty much 7:05 when the kids are up. So we'll have breakfast together, get the kids off to school and daycare, and then I can shuffle work and training during the day, and then I cook dinner and we're home in the evenings. The UltraMan build up, like there was a few Saturdays where I was gone from sunrise to sunset.
Yeah.
But then like on the Sunday morning, Larissa would get up and go for a run or go to the gym or whatever, and then I'd do a little bit in the afternoon and just shuffle things around like that. So yeah, we just make it work. Like swim squad before kids was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Now for me, it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday is Larissa off to the gym, and I'll either do something in the garage if the kids are sleeping, or we're up and having breakfast at 5 a.m.
Yeah. Awesome. And so, Simon, can we have a chat about your recovery time? So you use sauna, you use ice bath. Like, do you put time in your diary to do the things for recovery, and do you notice if you don't do it? Like, do you notice a difference?
Yeah, I think so. Even like the placebo effect, like if I'm in the sauna and the ice bath, I'll sleep better, and then I'll just know that I've put that effort in. So I think your body relaxes more, and you feel more confident of pushing hard in your training. But I think the biggest thing has just been focusing on protein, like high protein, like not counting or watching, or like I've never counted calories or measured how much protein or anything I'm having, but just keeping that as the main focus and just eating lots. Like when I was training 35 hours a week, I could probably not even keep on top of the calories, so I was literally, if I was hungry, I was eating, and if I wasn't hungry, I was eating.
Yeah. Just to make sure you're getting it in.
And then, just enough stretching, mobility stuff, just daily, like even 5 minutes after a session, that all adds up. And then I've got recovery systems, recovery boots, which I'll jump in, a few times a week as well. But I think the balance between swimming, biking, and running definitely helps. Like even when you're doing big swimming, it's freshening the legs up a bit as well.
Yeah. Simon, what about supplements for you?
I take a multivitamin when I remember. Actually, my sponsor Tailwind sent me some Currans, just a couple of packs, and I was taking that before the UltraMan build up, and I think I actually found a bit of difference. Like I got no association with them or anything.
Yeah.
But that might be worth looking into a bit more as well. I do have protein shakes most afternoons, and I will put some extra BCAAs in there. I know there's so much research that probably whether it helps or not, but I've just always done that. So I pop them in.
Yeah, I do that too. I put
Yep.
BCAAs in with my Good Green Vitalities
Yep.
because they both taste good together. And actually, where the research is, as I understand it, is actually for DOMs, for endurance athletes. So I think you're on the money there.
Yeah, I think I've just always done it, so I've just kept doing it as well.
Yeah.
And just lots of salt, adding salt
Yeah.
with everything.
Yeah. I think actually that's an area where a lot of athletes might fall down, I think, is not they'll have their electrolyte drink this is just from my clinical experience, in their training and in their recovery, but not necessarily think about it at other times of the day. And it's more than just the electrolytes that you get in the drink that's important. It's actually, getting on top of that salt.
Yeah, and I think that also can trigger you, I guess. You could think that you're feeling hungry when you probably just need a bit of salt and some liquid.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, will go to a salty type of food or something, and it's like you don't need calories. 'Cause quite often you just need some salt.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Do you know, Simon? Do you know Sean Collins?
That name rings a bell.
Yeah, so he's a friend of mine, and he's otherwise known as a running beast. He runs Lactic Turkey.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So I think you guys are a little bit sort of cut from the same cloth in terms of your, I suppose your interest in these super long, super challenging events, because it's so much more than just the physical. Because I mean, to be able to be in physical shape over the course of the 6 months that you were for your events was phenomenal. But to have the mental fortitude to not necessarily the event, I mean, that's something in itself, but actually just the training and the day to day. Like, did you have like dark sort of periods of time where you were like, why am I doing this? Or actually that's not a thing that you think about? Because I know Sean's very good with that mental sort of fortitude side of things.
Yeah, I'd say 99% of the time, like I'm pretty amped and motivated for training. Like I like, pushing myself, testing out the, different training theories and philosophies, and just pushing the boundaries, I guess. And just seeing how it does motivate other people, I think. And once people sort of think of you as that crazy guy who pushes hard, it's like that does keep you in check as well. It's like, shit, I've got to keep upping my game. You're getting messages from all sorts of people saying like it is motivating, which is cool. And I mean, you still get those mornings where you wake up and you're like, I can't be stuffed going to swim squad, but I've never not done it. So, and you always feel better after you've done a session, like 100% of the time. And I think just because I have done it and have been so consistent, then it is just the alarm goes off and you get up and you do your thing.
Yeah, for sure. What was harder? Was Tarawera harder than the UltraMan?
Yep.
Yeah, I would have thought so too, actually. Yeah.
Yep.
What was it about it that made it harder for you?
Like I think because I raced Tarawera, like there's a difference between running 100 miles and racing 100 miles, like a big difference.
Yeah.
And I think I'm enjoying, finding these crazier events and actually trying to race them rather than just, go out and do them. Like there's a lot of people who you could go out and enjoy 100 miles. Like if you can walk a bit of stuff, have chats with people, but when you're trying to, push hard for that amount of time, I mean, it was, over 16 hours of running, hard. I think just that overall fatigue from the running is next level.
Yeah. And how long did it take for you post that race to feel like you had your running legs sort of back?
Well, I had to race Ironman like 21 days later.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Ironman. Actually, I didn't. It was actually in my notes, but I think I just got caught up in the.
So I had
the other ones.
A week off running, and then I think the following weekend, I only had 10 days of run training as such, but I just had to try and dial that 4-minute Ks back in for the Ironman sort of pace, and seemed to pull up all right. I mean, I definitely wasn't fresh going into Ironman, just because I didn't have the bike miles, which then affects, how you run. I think I ran 256, which, I mean, considering, what I'd done, I was happy with that, but I knew I should have been running, hopefully under that 250, which I guess if you didn't do 100 miles 2 weeks before, then
it
might
would have been
help.
a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Simon, did any of your, like throughout your training cycle, I suppose, like did your events that you'd just done, did that inform what you would then do training wise for your next event? So for example, you trained for Blue Lake. Did you think, okay, well, that went particularly well, I'm definitely going to do this for Tarawera, and subsequently Tarawera for UltraMan? Like how does that, like how much do you sort of adjust your training based on your those previous races?
Yeah, I mean, going through Blue Lake gave me a lot of confidence that obviously my endurance was okay. My run form must be all right to not break down too much over 200 Ks. So going into Taupo 100 a few weeks later, I mean, I knew I had done the endurance, so I just worked on a bit more intensity. But for ultra intensity, it's not, it's not going to the track and doing 200-meter reps or anything. And I don't think that's almost too risky when you're trying to put out 150K weeks. And then now my thoughts through the season was I was going to do those half Ironmans, which would be working on obviously the top end. And then it was going to be Tarawera, Ironman. And then that was sort of the perfect lead in to UltraMan because I didn't have to do high volume running because I still had that Tarawera run block in my legs. And the Ironman intensity on the swim and bike had sort of done its job. So I just had literally a month of building the race pace endurance towards UltraMan. So it's sort of, timed perfectly, really.
Yeah. Were there any niggles throughout which made you think, I don't know that this is all going to come off, that you just were a bit quiet about on social media?
No, that's what I mean. Like this build up was literally, I got to the start line, probably the best I'd felt for any race ever, which was interesting because it had been the biggest volume build up. And I remember doing a 20-30 minute jog a couple of days before UltraMan in Aussie, and I was like, all right, I'll just go do it easy 30 minutes. And I came back and the average was like 4:19 per K, and I was like, wow, the legs have actually freshened up a bit as well. So that gave me quite a bit of confidence. And same thing with the swim a couple of days before. I just went and did a kilometre, and same thing, just went by feel. And I was like, well, that's actually race pace, and that felt quite good. So whether you're used to racing half Ironman and Ironman intensity, and then you're bringing it back to that sort of high-end aerobic, just the perceived effort is easier to mentally deal with, and then obviously, easier for the body as well.
Yeah. And what about your, with that aerobic based training, were you basing it on like Phil Maffetone's sort of maximum aerobic function, or just?
So the last time I put a heart rate monitor on would have been about 15 years ago. So,
so is it all on feel and pace? Like, do you just
all on feel? Yep.
Yeah, amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the watch wrist heart rates are useless, so there's no point trying to use them.
Yeah.
And I don't like the chest strap. It's just annoying, chafing, and my heart rate's quite low. So like resting heart rate would be under 40, and my threshold heart rate while running is like 150 or something. So all the zones that are sort of out there and that you're looking at, weren't super relevant. So no, it's pretty much just by feel. I mean, I know my aerobic pace now as well, and that was slowly coming down. Like when I got back into running, like after my accident a couple of years ago, it was sort of 450s per K was sort of like, that easy aerobic. And now that has sort of come all the way down to, like 425, 430 as the long, easy run pace where you can still have a chat and, feel comfortable.
Yeah, awesome. Is it a lot of money in UltraMan?
No. No.
But there's good kudos. So,
yeah.
So now, what's on the? So when you went into that race, actually, so did you have an idea of your competition and how they could do, like, and compared to where you were at, like, did you know who else you were sort of competing against?
Yeah, so there was a big pre-race favourite, Richard Thompson, who was two-time UltraMan world champ. He'd won Australia a couple of times and was a previous record holder. And he had put it out there that he was, a big project sub 20 hours sort of thing, which was an hour and 20 off the world record. So everyone was sort of saying, you're dreaming. And I didn't think about times or anything because I hadn't done the distance before. So yeah, I was just going there to race, and yeah, just do my thing.
Yeah. And I know that you have covered this on other podcasts, but when you were sort of coming out of the swim, did you was it obvious where you were placed?
Well, I mean, I knew I was in the lead,
Yeah,
which
okay.
was nice.
Yeah.
But at the final turnaround buoy, I actually took a time split on my watch to see where Richard was, and it was only like 6 or 8 minutes behind, which in the scheme of a 10K swim isn't huge. So I pushed quite hard for the last bit of the swim, and then got onto the bike, like quick transition out onto the bike, and pushed like really hard. But going back, realize now that I actually beat him out of the water by 20 minutes. So I must have put a lot into him in that last K and a half. So whether his conditioning wasn't quite there for the full 10Ks or whatever. And then after day one, I had a 37-minute lead already.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I wanted. I wanted to make a bit of a statement and put everyone else under pressure. Because I do have a fairly strong swim, that was the plan.
Yeah, nice. And then, so what about your recovery food sort of post that first swim, Simon? Like, were you did you have that all sort of dialed in, or did you just sort of eat to feel the way that we were talking about earlier? Like, what was the deal for you there?
Yeah, so on the swim, you've got a paddler who pretty much directs you, and they can carry a bottle and whatnot. So I just had, I think, 4 or 5 quick stops, quick scull of tailwind. So I just had a bottle over that 10Ks. And then, so you're straight onto the bike for 145Ks after that swim. And yeah, just sort of normal
what you were talking about before.
There, yep.
Yeah.
And then straight after, bit of protein, and then home that night, and it was just keeping it simple. So we just had homemade pizzas and some kumara fries. Didn't want to have a huge load of solids. And then, yeah, pretty much that was the same day one, day two.
Yeah. And what about breakfast?
So my standard breakfast, like for racing, is just some rice cakes, peanut butter, banana, salt, and that was the same across the 3 days. Like that's what I do every weekend before my big sessions. So that was, yeah, keep everything same.
Yeah, nice. And like in that race, where what was your favorite part of that race? Like, was it the coming down, finishing the run, like knowing that you'd like nailed the world record? Like,
yeah, interesting. There's a few, I guess, like each day had their own bits. Like I really enjoyed the 10K swim. Like I didn't think I was going to. Like the long pool training swims really drag on. But being in Noosa, the water was 25 degrees. It's clear. You're out front, swimming well, feeling good. Yeah, when we got to like 9Ks and there was a K to go, I was sort of like, oh man, I wish it was longer. Like it was weird. I did not think that would be the case. And then, yeah, the long rides, like I really enjoy that. There was a bit of scenery, but you're not looking too much into it. But just, yeah, I guess just getting stuck in on those long, hard days, just enjoy that, like, 7 hours of threshold riding. Not for everyone, but... And then the run, the first marathon, yeah, just went quite smoothly. Like I had Matt Kerr as my pacer, so we were literally just chatting away, yeah, talking shit, and then turned and they said 2:58, and I was sort of like, wow, okay, that's going all right. And then obviously it gets a bit harder on the way back through the hills and that sort of thing, but didn't have any super dark patches like across the 3 days. Like it was pretty smooth, so the whole thing was enjoyable. That doesn't mean it was easy, but it was, yeah, went as smooth as I could have hoped.
Yeah, nice. And it's funny, I was having this conversation with some other people a few weeks ago, in that sometimes when you're out training, I don't know if this happens to you, and I don't think it will, but sometimes you just sort of throw your toys a little bit and go, what on earth am I doing? But then you stop and think, hey, actually, I've made the choice to be here. I'm really lucky to be out here doing this. And how awesome it is. Like reframing it when you do have those dark moments. I reckon that's a real skill, I don't even think that comes down to experience, actually, because even the most experienced people can go into a hole, and it's just sort of
I think it's just having that mindset. And definitely, like, there's so many people that would love to be doing what we all get to do, running, riding, swimming outside, and being fit and healthy. Like, there's a lot of people that would give anything to be there. So you are lucky, but you are still choosing to do it as well. And then I guess those dark patches, like on race day, like, yeah, I don't go to the races to enjoy them. Like, you're going there to get the most out of yourself, and I'm expecting to hurt and expecting to suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally. And what was your sleep like across the days, actually? Like, were you too wired to sleep?
Yeah, well, you're sort of just a bit achy as well. But I generally sleep pretty good. Like, I got to bed early enough that, I was lying down for, 6 or 7 hours. So that's better than, So no, sleep was all right. After the day 3, like after the 84K run, the sleep that night didn't really happen. Like, literally aching, and I guess just overwhelmed from the 3 days. But I think just the 3 days of that much sugar and carbs in the body as well, your body's just going, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
I think I worked out I would have had like over 1.5 kilos of sugar over the 3 days, and it's like your body's trying to process that.
Yeah.
And then you chuck a few beers and a couple of pies in afterwards as well.
That's good. I was actually going to ask you that because I wasn't sure, because I know some people after something like just like they really want to eat because mentally they're like, oh, I can't wait to have this, but physically the stomach's like, oh no, that's not going to happen.
Well, I think because I had liquid across the days, I was actually hungry. So yeah, on the drive back to the Airbnb, we actually stopped at a bakery and I got 2 pies and finished them before we got home. And then, I was definitely hungry. And then, we went back down to the Noosa Surf Club and, had a big meal and, a few beers and,
Awesome. And then for that following week, Simon, did you did you have any post-race sort of depression? Like, do you get that?
No, I'm pretty good. No, I was quite excited really because it all went well, and then can start planning out the sort of next adventure and that sort of thing. And I guess just because there was quite a lot of exposure and quite a bit of hype around the event, which is cool. So I guess that kept me quite hyped up as well, rather than if you just came home or if you had a shit race, you would sort of feel a bit average for a while. But no, I think it was almost opposite. Like, I came home and I was sort of like kept getting messages and so that definitely helped.
Yeah, for sure. And I imagine as well through the last 6 months that whenever you ticked off like a milestone sort of event in the lead up, they all went so well, and yet there was still something else in the future to sort of like enable you to sort of look ahead and not think, oh, well, I just did my goal marathon for the year and I've got
exactly. And I think that just helps you keep focused towards the next thing. And it sort of all just was building up towards this, but it didn't feel like I built up and then it dropped off, if you know what I mean. Like, it feels like there's still higher things to go now, which is exciting as well.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of recovery, how was that week for you post the event? Like, did you do active movement? Did you really not do anything at all? Like, what's the kind of what did you do, and what would you tell your athletes to do?
Yeah, I'd say I was more tired than sore.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still sore, but I'm used to being sore. Like, I'm sore every weekend. It's just, that's normal. But I guess the lack of sleep and just the overall energy output over the 3 days, like, I think I would have burnt, 25 to 30,000 calories across the 3 days. So that's a big shock to the body. And I think just being tired and not sleeping as well, and then a bit of travel and, that sort of thing. But no, in general, it was good. So just back into some light rides and swims for the first week. And then this week's actually, body's starting to loosen up again and ready to go.
Yeah. And what are you ready to go for?
So I'm almost ready to lock in UltraMan Canada.
Amazing. When is that?
I think that is 5.5 weeks.
Ah, fantastic. Actually, doesn't that make perfect sense, right? Like, as long as you nail your recovery, then you've got all of that fitness just waiting.
Yeah, so if that goes ahead, like we're looking at this weekend to sort of see if we can make it all work, it'll be just another week of building back into things, a 3-week block, and then taper again. So to be able to focus just for that 4 weeks is quite easy. Whereas if it was, December or something, you'd have to, have a whole build up again, which, So hopefully that, which is a qualifier for the World Champs in Hawaii in November. So there might be 2 more UltraMans before the end of the year.
Was that Noosa one not a qualifier?
Bit of politics with the owners between Australia and Hawaii UltraMan, so no, and they weren't willing to give a wildcard entry or anything either.
Really?
So there's a big history there that, is obviously not too healthy relationship. So no, not a direct qualifier, but hey.
And you know what? You don't need that because you're just going to go and kick ass in Canada anyway. So like legit, like, so I mean...
Yeah, and it's in Penticton, which I love. Like I've raced Challenge Penticton before. And the course looks amazing. Like it's a lake swim. And I think it's actually a point-to-point 10K, which will seem like a hell of a long way. And then the day one bike finishes, 145 Ks away from the start. And the day two, so it's a bit more logistics to organise, but you get to see a lot more of the area. And I think it will be a lot warmer, a lot hillier. So the times might not be as quick. And the conditions might be a bit tougher, but I'm looking forward to that challenge as well.
Yeah, because it doesn't really matter your time for the qualifier, is it?
No, I don't think so. No,
Yeah.
I think this one, if I race and, if I race well, I'll probably, get in easy.
What is it, top 3 or?
No, I don't even know if they've got like a criteria as such, but I mean, I'll be racing to win.
Yeah, cool. So is there anything from your training for this ultra that you will change in the lead in to Canada?
No, I mean, I've just sort of looked back at the 3 weeks before the Aussie one.
Yeah.
And I've sort of penciled that in for the 3 weeks before Canada. But the travel, it takes an extra day or so, and then the time zones and that sort of thing. So that last week I might freshen up a little bit more. Like I'm not worried about the endurance as such. And then I might do the 2 weeks prior to that the same. And then the 2 weeks prior, I might do a little bit lighter volume, but a little bit more intensity just to lift the thresholds up. So I might find a marathon or something like that, something nice and short.
Yeah.
And just get used to that sort of uncomfortable tempo running. So then when you go back to the 84K pace, it feels a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, nice. Will Larissa and the family be coming with you?
This trip, probably just Larissa.
Yeah, cool.
Yep. But it was good to have everyone at Noosa. Like it was, because they are your full support crew in the car. Like there's no aid stations or anything. So it's literally on them for directions and handing bottles and that sort of thing.
Yeah. How old are your kids, Simon?
Tinley's 5.
Yeah.
So just started school, and Nixon's 2.5.
Cute. Well, 2.5 probably is a little bit too young, but I just think it's so great for kids to see their parents go out and like nail it, like be so determined and that kind of thing. I was having a conversation with someone the other week just talking about how, like sometimes you can get really frustrated at kids because they're not basically picking up what you're putting down, but they are in their head. Yeah.
No, that's definitely a motivator. And but I think, like Tinley understands what I do, but still doesn't understand the distances or anything.
No,
Dad's
doesn't
just
need
done
to.
a 90K training run, and now he's home mowing the lawns and, playing for the afternoon. It's like, he just went out for a little jog.
Yeah, totally.
Back, so
Yeah. Because, his mates' dads will probably do the same, like go out for a little jog and then mow the lawns. But it's all relative, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, if you had an athlete come to you and say that they'd want to do all of what you've done, what would you have said to them?
Yes, but it's probably going to take an extra few years to get to that level. It literally is that years of aerobic base that you can't short track, like people that try and do it get injured or, run down or lose motivation or that sort of thing. Like it does take time to build up that endurance. But I mean, it can be done, but you just got to be willing to put in usually a bit more work than you think and just commit for a bit longer. But most people can get more out of themselves by actually, nailing and just focusing on each day rather than thinking, got something down the line. It's like, no, I just want people to just focus on what you got to do today, do that the best you can, and tick that off for 6 months in a row, and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. I think.
Yeah. And what is that saying? That people overestimate what they can do in 6 weeks, but underestimate what they can do in like a year or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's big. Yeah.
Yeah. Any with your injury history, I know that you've had a fall before, but any stress fracture worries or anything like that you were sort of mindful of coming into this massive block?
I mean, my feet roll in a little bit, so I've got like orthotics. A few years ago, I did have a stress fracture in my ankle, but I think that was more from a sort of impact or twisting it rather than overtraining as such. So no, pretty good really. I mean, you still get the sore areas, tight areas, but it's just backing off when you need to, and just I mean, I get massage every couple of weeks, and just keeping on top of stretching, making sure you're using new shoes every block. So I've got like about 6 shoes that I'll rotate through just to change it up as well.
Yeah. And actually, I was thinking about your running load and thinking most people sort of change up their running shoes every, 12 weeks, and you might be a little bit more than that.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty efficient with my run form, I think. So my shoes actually do last. Like I got 1,000 Ks out of a pair of shoes. Which is quite good.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's great. Do you have a shoe sponsor?
No. Mike Graham at Shoe Science helps me out a bit.
Yeah, he's great.
But no, it'd be cool to get into I run in Saucony's 90% of the time.
Nice.
So yeah, it's just
that'd be great.
Those are my pick at the moment.
Yeah, so you've obviously got Tailwind.
Yep.
Saucony would need to ring you up.
Yeah. And then like for my bike and like Sipo have sponsored me for about 6 years, which is a cool Japanese brand that suits me so well. And then negative split carbon wheels. And then just come on board with Win Republic for the training and racing gear, which is
That's
quite cool.
Great.
So,
yeah. They've got some nice gear. So Simon, we just talked about sort of patience, perseverance, and just taking it day by day for other athletes who are inspired by what you do. Anything else that you want to sort of leave them with or motive or anything because who's contacting you now actually? Do you get a lot of ultra runners contacting you? A lot of the longer, as opposed to, your 70.3s and your Ironman athletes?
Yep. Probably, in the last, obviously, just couple of months, it has been a bit more, people going for those more extreme events, just because I guess I've been out a bit of a profile now and have done, fairly well at some long events. And I think it's a lot of people don't realize what it does take and what the commitment is. So I think it's just making it realistic in the build up. Like, you got to tick off, like I say, each week at a time. And if we can just keep progressing towards whatever event you're aiming for, then that's the only goal you can really have. Like, you don't really need a time goal or a placing goal. It's like if you can keep improving consistently, then that's the number one goal. And whether that happens across 2 months towards an event, or you can keep doing that across 5-10 years, then that's the most important thing. And I think just realizing that every little decision does make a difference. Like, same thing with diet, I guess. It's like, you can be a bit relaxed as well, but then you get into that loop of being more relaxed more often as well. So it's just always choosing the hard option. Like I said the other day, it's just,
Yeah. You just feel so much better.
Deep down, you know what the answer is. Like, you don't need to ask someone, or you don't need to, you may do for a bit of guidance, but at the end of the day, you know what is the right choice when you think, should I do this or should I do this? 9 times out of 10, you know deep down, and the confidence builds from when you choose that hard thing.
Yeah, I love that. And, Simon, I've developed more of a mindset like that in the last couple of years, which has been so great for for my running, and also other areas like professional development and stuff. And I did it through resources and podcasts and books and things. Have you always felt and thought this way, or have you also done that sort of work? And do you also engage in podcasts around
Yeah, definitely. And same thing in
Yeah,
the last few years, I think it works well with training for the mindset as well, but then it's business,
yeah,
relationships, everything's the same. It's like,
it is.
if you've got an email that you like, oh, I don't really want to get back to them, it's
Yeah,
like, do that first.
yeah,
And the weight is off your mind.
yeah.
Or, a lot of times, when people are messaging and that sort of thing, it's like, pick up the phone, call them, get the situation done. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a lot better than you think. Like in your head, it's going to be a lot worse. So just, get the hard thing out of the way first. And it's like cold shower in the morning. It's like if you can do something that you hate, that sucks first thing, then the rest of the day is going to be a bit easier.
Totally. And what do any books or any podcasts that you listen to or anything or any emails that you subscribe to that sort of give you that daily sort of reminder of this stuff?
Oh no, I need some new books. I've sort of been quite busy lately.
Yeah, yeah. You need
Haven't had a lot.
audiobooks.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, all the usual podcasts that are, motivating is good, and I'll just sort of scan through, and if I find a guest that I enjoy or like, then and then you go down some rabbit holes and learn different things. But the good old Goggins hard tough nut stuff, that's good, and that crosses over with every aspect of life as well, I think.
I totally agree. That,
Yep.
and I bet you would listen to a lot of the similar things. Michael Esther in his Comfort Crisis book.
Yep.
Yeah, I subscribe to his Substack 2%. It's great. There's another book, 4,000 Weeks, actually, which is,
I've heard that one.
yes, yeah, that's the number of weeks that on average we're going to
Yes.
live. So you better make the most of them. As
Yeah,
you
I've seen
do,
a few people
Simon.
with those big calendars where you cross off,
Yeah.
each week
Oh, yeah.
to what? Yeah, I was like, I don't know. If I want
I
one of
don't
those,
know if
but
I want to do that either.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Simon, thank you so much for your time this morning. Like, it's so cool to have this chat and just get a little bit of an insight into what goes on in your mind. And because I think it's so inspiring for people, and it's so cool that things have just gone so well. Because every time you did a race, it was like, oh my God, you've nailed that again. Like it was big talk in our house as well, because we've loved following you and seeing what you've done. So finally, I do actually just have one question. Is there like a 200 miler in your future somewhere in Europe?
Yeah, I was actually following that Cocodona 250 in the
Yes.
States, which is strangely enough quite appealing. Running 400 k's non-stop through the desert.
Not strange at all,
Um,
actually.
yeah, and this sort of multi-day UltraMan sort of was an insight into what it feels like going day after day. I mean, it's not running for 3 days straight, but it's a bit of an insight. And I mean, I've done the Blue Lake 24 hour, which I might slot in again this year as well, whether I go for the 200k again or just go and have some fun with my athletes out there.
Yeah,
We'll
nice.
see.
Yeah.
But no, definitely. I think, it'd be fun to go and like have a good crack at some of those races. Like I was saying, like, a lot of people enter a 250-mile run and probably walk 70% of it. But just push some limits and see. Yeah, the first time I do that, it might end up real ugly, but
It's all learning, eh?
if I do the prep right and believe in the process, then who knows? You might be able to go and go well at some of those, and like bad water and some of those real
Yes.
extreme conditions events.
Yeah.
Which I think with some of my results lately, it probably helps with some of the application processes, which seem hard to get into a lot of those events. So maybe with a bit of some good results this season, it might help talking to some race organisers or something.
Yeah, I can't imagine any race organizer turning you away. If I'm if they don't accept someone like you, who on earth goes into those events? Like, who are these crazy people? When I say crazy, I don't actually mean crazy, but just like, I really think that your results you stand out, like, and it's so awesome.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, no, I mean, this season has gone pretty well. But the exciting thing is you can always see room
Yes.
for improvement.
Yeah.
And it's not even in the physical stuff, it's just pushing that mental boundaries. Like UltraMan went pretty smooth, like there wasn't any dark sort of stuff. So you're like, well, how much harder could you have pushed? because day 3, like I wasn't racing anyone apart from me and the clock, which is quite hard to get the most out of yourself when you're not under so much pressure.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
Nice, Simon. Well, I hope that you have a good, relaxing rest of your day, and it's exciting to hear that Canada may be on the cards, and just get confirmation on that, and then just follow your journey through there, because that's not far away. So now tell people where they can find you on Instagram, and also, are you taking athletes right now? Or your books are full? How's that look?
Pretty close to being full.
Yeah.
Still always keen to chat to people, because there's always options around that. So definitely, get in touch via athleticpeak.co.nz.
Nice.
Or on Instagram you'll find, I think it's athletic.peak, and at Cochrane Simon on Instagram, and you'll find all things crazy endurance.
That is awesome. Simon, thanks so much.
Thanks, Mikki. Good to chat.
Alrighty, hopefully you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed chatting to Simon, and it was such a great chat just to be able to talk to him about all of those elements that got him to where he is, and also, of course, what's next. I think it's super exciting for Simon, and I'm really, I can't wait to see how the rest of the year unfolds. Next week on the podcast, I talk to my friend Kwadwo Kiriamanteng, an ICU and palliative care specialist, on his experience being on the front line of the COVID response in Canada. Despite the fact that COVID is almost a distant memory for us, there are some real take-homes from this conversation that I had with Kwadwo that I think you're really going to appreciate. So that is next week on the podcast. You guys have a great week. You can catch me over on Facebook at Mikki Williden Nutrition, over on Instagram and Twitter at Mikki Williden, or head over to my website, mikkiwilliden.com, where you can book a call or jump on one of my meal plans. All right, team, have a great week. Talk soon.